My name's Tina Parks and I'm from the British Academy of Floral Art. Welcome to my garden. We're here today to celebrate Garden Day, which is going to be on the 10th of May. And this is a day to take out and enjoy all the hard work you've put into your own garden. And why not for that day wear a beautiful floral crown? We thought we'd show you a range of different styles and how to make them. So I'm going to make the base for this one, but I'm going to show you how to make a different varied design so that you can use any material that you have in your garden. So it's really, really beautiful here. It's lovely and warm and a little bit noisy, so maybe let's go inside and I'll show you how to make it. So we've moved inside and we're going to make the base of the crown. So I've got some heavy wires here, some thick wires. But if you don't have any of these, don't worry, if you've got thinner ones, we can just tape 2 or 3 together, it's fine. So I'm just going to start with one, and I'm going to tape it all the way along. So I'm going to use the brown paper covered tape. This is nice because it's really neutral, and it's very soft. It's really good if you're working with vegetative design. This brown tends to blend in nicely. But you could use the parafilm tape, the green one, or you could use wool if you didn't have any tape at home and you're just having a look to see what you've got, or embroidery thread, anything, and you can wrap the wool around the wire exactly the same as I'm doing now, but just with lengths of wool. So we're just going to go all the way down to the end. We just want to cover the wire, just gives us a really good base to work to. And just before I get to the end, I'm going to add another piece in. So I'm going to put another piece in alongside, and then I'm going to tape that in as well. This gets a little bit more tricky because it's quite long now. I'm just going to let that go. If you angle it slightly down on the table, it doesn't flick around so badly. All the way to the end. There we go. Let's take that off. I'm just going to go over that joint a little bit, just to make sure that as I bend it, the problem is when you bend the wire, the under wire wants to pull out. So what we're going to do now is going to use this to measure our head. So we're going to lean it, press it on our head, and we're going to bend it round. So obviously you wouldn't normally be wearing a flower crown at this point, so you could do it much easier. And I'm just going to keep it at the join there, so that's where it joined. Take the hair with me as well. And I'm just going to add a little bit of tape to this. So for this, now we've got the shape, it's easier just to take a little piece of tape off and just use that to wrap around. I'm just going to go about 2.5 inches along. Okay, so that gives us our bottom shape. So that's the one that's going to sit on your head. Usually our heads are fairly oval. It's quite interesting to see when you pull off the wire what size head you have. Now it's interesting to know if you want the headdress to sit more across the top of your forehead, then the circle you probably will find will be bigger. If you want to tip it back like mine is, so that it goes back across the top of the head and sits right on the crown, then you generally need a slightly smaller base. And this frame, you keep this piece on because we're going to add a second layer to this. So I'm just going to add another wire to the first wire. So just put it alongside and then just add your tape. It's a little bit more difficult because we've got a circle on there now. Once you get going, it's easier. And again, you're going to go all the way to the end. Like so. And then this one is going to bend around the same shape as you have the first one, but what we want to do is make this one a little bit wider. So can you see that that one is a little longer than the first one? So that's our first one at the bottom, and this lower one is the longer one, a bit longer, and that's going to give us a better frame when we put it on an angle. A little bit of tape, going to join those two together. Blend it in. Okay, and then we started with our frame. And we're just going to add a couple of little legs to keep the top piece suspended, otherwise this is going to bounce around. If you're doing a very light one, that's fine, but because we're going to add a little bit of weight to this, we're just going to need to keep this at a set distance. So we can just add some legs to the frame. So I'm just going to add 3. 2, I need to be exactly the same length, and 1 is going to be a bit longer. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bend these at the same point. So here and here. And this allows us to hold the frame apart, and we can tape those into place. So I'm just going to go a little bit shorter. So if you put them up against the frame, you can see how long you want them to be. So I've just gone a little bit shorter. Actually, it works a little lower. And these two are going to sit in. Can you see they'll force the frame apart and set it so that it sets in its place. So again, a little bit more tape. Let's take a piece off. Easier now, because we're working on a frame, to take the side piece off. Take a little piece off the tape. So let's go about there. And you're just going to tape put the tape around the wire. This time it's easier to keep the wire still and just take the tape over the wire so you get it into to hold. And this is just going to give our frame a little bit of strength and a bit of structure. So just like so. And the same on the top. So I'm just going to carry on doing this, and I'll be back in a minute to show you the next piece. Okay, so now I've finished my frame. So as you can see, I've got the 3 struts in there, and they're just giving that nice security there. If you've got a heavier flower and you want to use large flowers, so in the summer perhaps roses, peonies, larger flowers, then you might find that just adding a few extra struts in there will just give you even more support. So to cover this, to work with, I'm just going to use a little bit of felt. So I've got some brown felt here, which is going to be in my base. But you could use cling film. You could just wrap it in cling film. The cling film works really, really well and gives you a really good base to work to. So we just cut out a piece of felt, the right shape. And I'm just going to lay this on. And we're just going to add some glue. So I'm just going to glue the edges actually. Let's take it off. A bit easier. So I'm just going to run the glue all the way around the edge. So the glue we're using is the Floristry Oasis Floral Adhesive glue, which is really good. But you can just use Bostik, which you can buy from a supermarket, and that works just as well. It's just a wet, clear glue that dries clear once it's done its bit. So I'm just going to put this on the frame. I'm literally just going to fold the top over and hold it in place. So it's going to give a little bit of a crease. We could do a little few snips. So can you see it's just going to go over that top bar. So it's just literally holding it in place by going over the top bar, and then we're going to turn it over and go over the bottom one. So literally on the reverse, I'm going to do the bottom as well. So this might take a little while just to get it neat. So I'm just going to carry on doing that, and I'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, so here we are. We've finished the covering. So I've just used a little bit of felt just to cover the frame. That gives us something to glue onto. and the glue really takes to this felt really well, so it makes it a little easier when you're gluing your flowers on. So I've got some lovely flowers to add into the headdress. I looked in the garden and thought, wow, there's nothing in the garden that I can use. And then I actually stopped and went out and had a look at more detail. And I found all these beautiful things. So I've only got a small modern garden, but we have everything in here. So I found a few flowers, very few. We've got a little tiny amount of these beautiful sweet williams. They last really well. They're really cute. We've got some viburnum berries. We've got this beautiful hot pink flower, which is really stunning. I'm actually going to take this one apart in a minute. And then I've got some really tiny little eeny meeny things. They're little seed pods from the chocolate vine that are really cute with that little blue colour on them, really sweet. Little ceanothus. This one is probably not so good. He's not going to last, so I'm probably not going to use that one. As you can see, what I did was I cut them and put them all in water straight away so they can have a good drink. So if you can leave them in water for an hour or so, a couple of hours before you use them, it just makes sure they're fully hydrated. We've got some beautiful jasmine here, this one. We've got tulip pods. So these are the old pods of the tulip. These are the seed pods that are popped open from the tulip. Aren't they cool? They're just such an amazing shape. Olive branch here, but I love the undercolour of the leaf. So I'm going to use this side of the leaf rather than the green side, but both really good and long lasting, really good at gluing. I've got a little bit of lilac there. That's not very long lasting, but we might just put it in because it's pretty. I've got a little wildflower here, which is a little white one, which is amazing. It does hold quite well, surprisingly. Hellebores, which are always good, and this variety as well. I've got 2 hellebores here. Sedums, these little spiky chaps. These are nice. They're really good. I've got indoor plant material here. This is a tradescantia. That's the living tradescantia. That's when it's growing. And this is what happens to it when it dies. It falls off, but it's just as pretty when it's dead as it is when it's living. So I'm going to use both of those in there. Lovely. Little tiny fluffy lamb's tails here, or lamb's ears, lamb's lugs. So I've heard them record. This is a Snecchio. This is lovely, beautiful texture. This lasts really well. It's a really good leaf to glue, but it does burn. So try and put only a small amount of glue where you need it. I've got all sorts. I've got some Honesty from last year. This is just the seed pods I found in the garden. This is the Muscari seed pods. The Muscari's gone over now, but the seed pods are really great, really pretty, sort of almost glowy. I've got all sorts of grasses. I've got a fescue grass there. I've got the black grass, which is really beautiful. This lasts really well. Only problem is the snails like it. You see there's a little tiny munch mark out of it. So a lot of these have got little mouth marks all down the side, so I've had to pick a few. But they're really good, long-lasting materials. Different leaves. So large leaves, we can use something like this. This is a viburnum leaf, because we can cut it down, so it's really useful. We've got the beautiful white grey leaves at the moment, which are really proper, really trendy. So we've got a little Snecchio there, and we've got this little flat one as well, which is nice. But again, the underside of that is really good, really white, silvery on the top and white underneath. Sometimes it's worth having a look underneath the leaf to see what's underneath. And then there's also beautiful coloured foliages, like in this pot. So we've got some hebe, we've got a little heuchera leaf, we've got a little bit of purple sage, and we've got a pittosporum. So when I first looked at the pittosporum, I thought, no, it's too new, because look at the lovely green lime on the top. But what happens, can you see it's already started to go soft? But what I can do is the old leaves underneath, these are great. These are really tough, so I can glue these on really well. Let's put that one in there. And also dried things like the seed pods. So these are really nice little seed pods that you can find. Things, just have a look in the garden, see what's there. So lots and lots. I was really surprised how much I found in the garden. I wasn't expecting to find as much as this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start. So it's quite a good idea if you want to just have a little trial with a few things. Lay a few things out on the table to see how long they last really. And if they hold, then they're going to be great. If you only need the headdress for a couple of hours, then you can probably put most things on. But obviously if you want it to last all day, then try and choose the hardier things. So I'm going to make a start with the headdress now. So we need to decide on the design. So whether we're going to make this symmetrical, so that means we need to put a nice focal flower right in the middle, or whether we're going to do asymmetry, which means we're going to put the focal to one side, a heavy focal to one side, so the larger flower to one side, and then counterbalance it on the other side with maybe a smaller flower, but just a little further around rather than being right at the front. And then we're going to layer up the material. Now this is going to be just glued on, so this is using our glue again that we just used earlier on. So this is the Floral adhesive glue by Oasis. And one little trick that an amazing designer who inspired this design, actually, Françoise Weeks, she said when you're gluing to cut the box so you can hold your glue up. I haven't got a box here, but a glass does exactly the same job, just keeps it up. That stops the glue getting messy and going all over the table, which is quite good. So Françoise Weeks started this design trend, or she's one of a few of some who do this particular style of work, and she came to the Academy a couple of years back now, and she did this work, and it was really lovely, and it's perfect for when you've just got lots of little bits and you don't want to cut huge amounts of plant material. And what we're going to do is create sort of almost like a woodland layered look. So we're going to layer all the plant material on top of each other, and you just keep going until you build up a beautiful, beautiful frame. So I'm just going to start. So if we started with a few of the large leaves, let's have a few of these guys in first. The way to do this is that we need to seal the stems on each of these when we glue them. So that holds the moisture into the leaf. So if you hold the glue up and just push the glue tube so that the glue comes out, like this, and then onto the leaf. Can you see that? So just on the end there. So I've just glued a little on the end. That's sealed that leaf in now. If you do it this way, what happens is the trails go everywhere and you get lots of glue all over the place. So if you go this way and glue a little on the underside too, and I'm just keeping it on the midrib there because it won't scorch through to the top of that leaf then. If we put it on all over the leaf, then it's quite likely to scorch the rest of the leaf, and then you'll get sort of brown marks. So this headdress is worn this way up, so you have to work on this side. Remember that this is going to be your front. So it's quite a good idea if you get a glass and you rest your headdress on your glass so that you can work on that flat side. So then you've basically got a flat side to work to. It makes it much easier. Also, if you're laying that material that way round, then the material lays and stays put. So if I just glue those two on, just to show you. So always up and then along. So I think let's go symmetrical. Let's get a nice focal in there. So I'm going to take another leaf. Let's go another couple of leaves. When I add the materials, what I tend to like to do is to not put quite a lot of each thing on at a time. So put a few of these leaves on. So maybe sort of use, say, maybe half of them perhaps, or maybe 2/3 of them, and then save a few for the end, because the way we work with this design is we're layering everything up. So can you see how easy it is to work onto the base there? So you've got a nice flat base to work to, and then you can just build it all up, which looks really pretty. So let's just go a few more. I'm just going to take a few further down. So again, always at the end, seal the end. The end, that just helps the leaf last a little longer. And then I'm going to bring that leaf down there. And then let's have a slightly similar sized one to that one on the other side. It's a bit small. Let's find it slightly more similar size. As you can see, these leaves are quite small. My plant is pretty small in the garden this year, but it will come back again. It didn't like this winter. I don't know if it liked the wet. Okay, just keep putting your glue back in your glass. It makes it much easier. And then we're going to put them down. So because we've created a base, we could just put a very few flower on there. So we don't need lots of flower on because we can just let the base be seen, or we can layer this up. So if you don't have felt, what you could do is you could wrap cling film around, which works perfectly well. Just wrap it around nice and tight, so it gives you a nice taut frame to work onto, and it glues really easily onto the cling film. And of course it's really light, so most people have that in the kitchen. Again, we could wrap with wool, but the only thing is, because we've got a descending frame, it's getting smaller as it goes round. Sometimes the wool's a bit slippy as it goes round, and you have to wrap it around the top layer, wrap it around there, and then wrap it around the bottom, and then go back to the top, wrap it round, go to the bottom, wrap it round. That stops it sliding down the side. But the felt is good. Otherwise, I was thinking the other night that you could actually just cover it in something really funky like newspaper, and maybe let the newspaper show underneath and be part of the design. You could fold some newspaper into it as well to add more detail, especially if you didn't have enough materials. So I'm just going to carry on sticking the flower material on. One thing I'm just going to quickly show you is when I'm sticking a flower on, what I tend to do is I tend to get a couple of the flowers at a time, cut the heads off. If you lay them upside down on your table and then just add a little glue. So again, sealing the end, just putting a little bit of glue on the base there, and then just leave them there for a minute. I'm just going to cut that short so that it sits a little bit easier. If it's too long, it's going to sit proud. We don't need the cup to sit flat on the felt. And then I'll glue several of them before I started sticking them, because the value is now when I come to stick them, they'll stick really easily because the glue starts to get tacky, and then I don't have to hold them in place. So it makes it much quicker and much easier to add. So I'm going to build this up, and then I'm going to come back to you and show you the finished piece. Okay, so I've been busy working on this, and I've pretty much created what I was hoping to do. So there we are, that's the finished piece. So a little tip, when you're picking the hellebores, go for the ones that have got the swollen seed pods, because they're tougher and they'll last really, really well. They've still got the stamens in. See the one in the middle, he's still got a little bit of the stamens and stigmas in, and that won't last quite as well. So the big fat ones with the nice pods in the middle are the really good, long lasting. The other thing is that I've done this symmetrically, so I've got a focal central piece, and then I've sort of married out both sides, sort of mirror imaged on both sides as basically as I can. The other thing is, when you're putting things in, sometimes it looks better, I think, if you put little groups of things, so put things together. So when you put leaves on, put 2 leaves. So can you see there's 2 there on the side, and then there's 2 long pieces coming. So 2s and 3s rather than just all 1s. But obviously depending on what you found, because you can put lots of little 1 bits in there as well, but obviously little groups of things work really well, give you a little bit more strength. So that's the finished floral crown.